Hello everyone. In this video, we're going to talk about some of the directional effects of lighting, specifically brightness and glare. How any space or room is experienced will be affected by the intensity, how much light, and the directional qualities of the light sources. Those directional qualities include brightness and glare. So your lighting plans and your lighting designs should maximize the positive of brightness and yet control the glare. The definition of brightness is the interaction between an illumination level and the amount of light reflected off various surfaces known as reflectance. All right, that's pretty complicated, but it's easy to understand how bright something is. And there's a quantitative measure of brightness, and it's the light level that falls on a particular surface. It'll be measured in foot candles or lux, and we'll talk about all of those different measurements later in the semester. But let's talk here in the beginning of the semester about the qualitative experience of brightness. And perceived brightness can vary with expectation. Is your user expecting it to be that bright, or is it a surprise? It can vary with the day and the year, especially when you're using daylight, which can be very, very bright. Right? The perceived brightness of a space can vary with the physical condition of the eyes and your user's age. It can also vary with the luminaire design, all right? And this is where we as lighting designers have enormous impact in the selection of the particular luminaire and the type of lamp that goes in it. Perceived brightness can come from the contrast with surroundings if you have a dark background and a bright light. And finally, it can be affected by the color and texture and the finish, especially the shiny or speculative finishes of the objects around it. So here we have two examples. On the top, we have light, looks like a grocery store, from a direct fixture, as in the light from the luminaire is pointing directly down at the user. All right, and this can be perceived as too bright, especially when it's up against a dark background. On the bottom, we have light from indirect fixtures, and you can see them along the top there. They are shooting light up at the ceiling, which is then bouncing around the room. That's why it's indirect. That will usually appear as soft, and it will lower the brightness level. So what then is glare? Glare is excessive brightness. Brightness in itself is, good, but excessive brightness, too much, is glare. And one of the major ways that glare happens is contrast. If contrast between two areas is too great, all right, you can create glare. And here's some examples. On the left, we have looks like the afternoon sunlight pouring into this space. We've got bright, bright reflections coming off the floor, the windows, the tables, all right, and that's in contrast to the very dark shadows. And so we get a condition of glare. On the right here, we've got a dim inner hallway and then some brighter rooms beyond. And it's not that the light level in the hallway is actually too low for what's happening in there. It's simply that the contrast between the two rooms is too great. All right. And so we need to consider the adaptation of our eyes and equalize these areas. Glare can be categorized into direct and indirect glare. A direct glare will come from an exposed or uncovered light source, so your user can look directly at the light source. Indirect glare comes from reflected lights and can also be called veiling reflections. So here's an illustration. On the left, we have direct glare. The luminaire in front of the user is glaring directly in their eyes. And this poor user, from the back, they're getting some reflected glare on their work surface. How do we as lighting designers control and or eliminate glare? Well, there's two main tools in our back pockets. All right. The first is our lighting layout and careful consideration of placing the luminaires so that they don't create these glare situations. Right. And the second major tool are the actual elements of the luminaire, shades, baffles, louvers, lenses. These can all help to reduce glare. Kind of in the same category, only a little bit larger in shape, are some exterior devices like awnings, roof overhangs. They can reduce glare from the outdoors, from the daylight. In this video, we covered some of the directional effects of lighting, including brightness and glare. Thanks, everyone.